Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to Facing the Nation with the Leader of the Opposition. I am Malika Ramsey, thanking you very much for joining us for another very informative week. First off, I do apologize for the absence of the Leader of the Opposition this week. He is currently out and about looking after other matters as relate to the office of the Opposition Leader, and I can partly tell you on his mission list today, he is out, unfortunately, visiting the relatives and friends of the 3 persons who were killed in that horrific accident recently in the East Berbice quarantine area. So he's out visiting with those relatives and friends of those 3 women, 3 female actually, 2 teenagers and 1 3-year-old who were killed unfortunately by a drunk driver on Wednesday night, I think it was. And of course, our discussion is based on that horrific accident. Our discussion today is based on that horrific accident and the fact that it's another issue that the Guyana Police Force seem to not be able to get under control. It's not only about crime, various criminal acts in society, but we're also dealing with the fact that road fatalities continue. Unfortunately, road fatalities continue. With me on the program, however, even though the Brigadier is not here, with me on the program is someone who is fully experienced in the area of crime and security, whether it's via on the road or whether it's criminals, people just going out there and committing crimes. With me is former police commissioner. He's currently APNU member of parliament and of course the shadow minister of home affairs, Mr. Winston. Felix, welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much, Malika. Happy to be here.
All right, great to have you. Before we get into today's discussion, we'll show you a clip talking about traffic accidents. And it's really, really unfortunate that we have to come back to this issue because APNU dealt with this issue, the partnership, and of course, by extension, the People's National Congress Reform, extensively dealt with this issue about 7 months ago, and unfortunately nothing has been done. APNU has also put forward several recommendations in terms of making our roads safer, but again, nothing has been done. So we bring you this clip talking about some of those recommendations that APNU did make 7 months ago, and now we're forced to come back to it because this time it's not only one person, but 3 persons died, in one swipe because of a drunk driver and because we don't have enough traffic cops on certain roads, certain community roads. So take a look at this clip and we'll come back and talk with you some more.
Okay.
Road traffic accident in the East Berbice community that left 3 dead is once again highlighting the alarming rate of road traffic accidents in Guyana. The death of 2 teenagers and a toddler because of the antics of a drunk driver has not only left a family and friends grieving, but it has left the entire community in shock. Less than a year ago, a Partnership for National Unity had called on the government of Guyana to do more to ensure road safety. But it seems that such calls would have fallen on deaf ears as these fatal traffic accidents continue and lives are lost. APNU had then reminded the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration of the Ministry of Health's National Rehabilitation Services Strategy 2009 to 2013, which revealed that road accidents were among the top 10 leading causes of death and account for the greatest number of disabilities. 1,563 persons have been killed in traffic accidents in 2002 to 2012. The partnership had urged the PPPC to work diligently to achieve the objectives of the UN's Global Decade of Action for Road Safety Month 2010 to 2020 and Guyana National Road Safety Council's National Road Safety Strategy for 2013 to 2020. Government was then urged to focus on 5 key areas by the partnership. Road safety, by implementing measures to ensure that roads that run through heavily populated villages are better lit at night, provided with sidewalks, and are unencumbered, the immediate repair of damaged roads. Secondly, human safety, improvement of the safety of the most vulnerable road users, meaning pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists. The partnership said that measures must be taken to disqualify incompetent and incorrigible persons from driving taxis and buses. Then it focused on vehicle safety, Inspection of newly imported motor vehicles must be carried out to ensure that the minimum global safety accessories and features are adopted. Then road safety management. Increased and sustained enforcement of road safety laws and standards is necessary to improve road user behavior. Responses to excessive speeding on the roadways should also include patrolling high-risk zones by day and night, enforcing lower speed limits wherever public roads run through populous rural communities, ensuring that minibuses and other commercial vehicles carry the lawful complement of cargo or passengers, banning distracting music and movies from minibuses, and prohibiting the sale of intoxicating beverages in or near to public transportation terminals. And finally, APNU urged that the government also focus on human safety response, introduction of improved emergency care and pre-hospital services for victims of accidents by establishing a national ambulance service and training a corps of first responder emergency care assistants. Those were the recommendations put forward by a Partnership for National Unity to government to curb and reduce the alarming rate of road fatalities in our country. But those fatalities still continue today. Exactly. Those fatalities still continue today, and we apparently, again, we're looking to a Partnership for National Unity for some solutions to those problems, because, you know, it's not only about highlighting the problems in our society, but coming up with proper solutions. But let's see if this time around government may want to work along with Partnership for National Unity in order to at least reduce the amount of road accidents, and, you know, by doing that, we'll definitely reduce the amount of road deaths. Thank you, Mr. Felix. A lot to take in there, but even before I deal with government, more so Mr. Clement Rohi, because I know you're also using this to, in a sense, put some pressure, may not be a good word here, but try to convince the head of state to actually remove Mr. Clement Rohi from that ministry. But even before we deal with all of that, you've said a lot. My first question, though, and we know it is a fact that most of these, especially drunk driving accidents caused by drunk driving, they occur at, you know, late at night or very early in the morning when it's still dark. You talked about bringing our police officers out probably in numbers. How practical is that? Because we see them sometimes, you may see them between 7 and maybe 9 at night, and then they come off. But how practical is it to have them, let's say, especially when they're peak party seasons like that's coming up now, how practical is it to have a group of police officers in various areas, maybe midnight or 2, 3 o'clock in the morning? How do we achieve that?
Malika, it might look or seem as though it is a difficult task or challenging task. It is challenging because the force is short. And the same people they use all day is this very same people they have to use all night. But my position is, it is the force that must seek its salvation. We can't go to any other organization and ask for them to come out at night. It is the police that must work out a program to determine which nights are problematic nights, and in which areas, and how do I organize my limited resources to bring sense to errant drivers on these roadways.
We see sometimes there are these roadblocks, and the police officers may not necessarily, I know a lot of viewers out there, the ones who drive and the ones who are also pedestrians would agree with me. Sometimes you see these roadblocks and the officers they don't look like the regular traffic officers that we would see in the mornings or in the afternoons. Are these police officers who are there at nights, and some of them dressed in blue and you see them with the big guns, are they for the purpose of traffic violations, or is it that they only carry out searches on vehicles?
Based on what I know, those patrols were designed to be multifunctional. You see, when you're short, specialization doesn't help you. So while you want to deal with the criminal situation, there are situations sometimes which require a crossover to a traffic situation. When I joined the force, we were told that every policeman must have in his possession an accident report booklet and forms T1 and T2. It was saying to us then that you don't have no general duty policeman or policeman. As a matter of fact, in those days, the traffic department was just being built up. And it was not a luxury. It was a luxury to have traffic by itself. So we were encouraged to, one, make traffic cases, and two, I, as a general duty policeman, investigated accidents at the police station and did what was to be done. And this is where the training, it is good for training. So, to answer you directly, I have to say that it is better to have a general position in terms of deploying manpower than to have a dedicated position taken by these ranks. But we must ensure at the same time that they are well trained.
Okay. Viewers, this is a good time for me to let you know that we'll also open up the phone lines a bit earlier today, a bit earlier than usual, so that you can get your questions in on, of course, road accidents. And, of course, because Mr. Felix is here on crime and security in general, so I'll open up the phone lines earlier than I usually do. Now, Mr. Felix, let's say in the case of an accident, maybe a driver hits a pedestrian or a cyclist, and at the end of investigations, it turns out that the person who the driver hit, whether it be a cyclist or a pedestrian or a motorcyclist, even though if they die or they're seriously injured, if at the end of the investigation it turns out that that cyclist or pedestrian or motorcyclist was the person in the wrong, how do you deal with that? Is the driver still charged or penalized?
Well, the matter has to be investigated in order to determine where the fault lies. And wherever the fault lies, if it lies on one person or both persons, then either one or both will be charged.
You did talk about training, but I must ask this. Are we capable to eventually investigate and discover that? Because often, and especially as a journalist too, the journalists who practice every day could tell you when there's an accident, the police are called and the journalists get the tip and they go and they take the photographs and all of that of the scene, and then the next day you hear this person has been charged or whatever, or not charged. How is it that this investigation is properly carried out at that set time, or you just hold somebody for the accident?
Well, listen, accidents are pretty straightforward. There are rules of the road, and when there is an accident, either one person is a contributory factor or both. Sometimes both persons contributed to the accident. So there is no guessing about it. The evidence is always there based on the damage.
Yeah.
Based on the damage to the vehicle, you can determine what, regardless of what they say, the damage on the vehicle and the stories told will guide you. Not just the damage. You have to listen to the stories. Get the witnesses, whether it's the two drivers alone or others, will tell you what was happening at that time. And when you look at the damage, that tells you a story. So it ought not to be very difficult in an accident to determine where fault lies and who ought to be charged.
I want to talk about a drunk driving kit because you mentioned it at an earlier press conference. But before I do that, let me ask you this. Can a pedestrian be charged for a traffic violation?
Well, we had this offense, jaywalking.
Yeah.
Good, right.
Okay, so that's basically the only offense that a pedestrian can commit. Because, no, the fact is, Mr. Felix, apart from jaywalking, you see sometimes pedestrians do crazy things. And sometimes I look at the things that pedestrians would do and I wonder, do I walk like that? Would I do that? Would I do this?
I think now that we have the traffic lights which have a specific stop and go for pedestrians, they can breach the traffic light too and be charged.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about the drunk driving kits now. At an earlier press conference, viewers, I must tell you, Mr. Felix spoke about there not being enough drunk driving kits. what is the purpose of the drunk driving kits, and if you can probably tell us what would be inside a drunk driving kit, and how many would maybe one jurisdiction or one community need?
Now, the purpose of the drunk driving kit is to give the police give them initial information as to the alcoholic content within the blood of the suspect, right? The driver under suspicion. He is expected to blow into this equipment, which is so designed that it can measure the content of alcohol in the blood. Now, based on that reading, it's a small little kit with a tube, which has been demonstrated on the television on a number of occasions, which you blow into. You have the record made, and the police can then determine whether the person is at the required limit or beyond the limit. If he's beyond the limit, then he is subject to a charge of driving under the influence. But then there is also the backup, which would require the driver at the... As a matter of fact, I think you can be taken to the station, and there is another, they ought to be, all the stations don't have it. You can redo the test there, and it records it and it produces a slip, which is used as which can be used as evidence at the time. But you need to, there might also be a need to take the victim to the hospital, and that's another problem, because sometimes they wait there for inordinately long periods, and they don't get the best results from the test. But based on those little steps, you see, long ago we were required to give evidence based on what we see, right? The gait, the slurry speech, etc., eyes, and so on. But today, this is a more objective assessment of the condition of a person suspected to be driving under the influence of alcohol.
You said earlier that we have a shortage in Guyana.
I'm talking from what I knew initially.
Okay.
When the kids first came, we didn't have all for every police station. But because of regular use, wear and tear, many of those kits are non-functional. And so, as we were told last year in Parliament, or early this year, there are only 3 remaining. Now, those 3 would be insufficient for the quarantine. Consider the length of the distance between Springlands and 51 station. Consider the distance between number 51 and Wim. Consider between Wim and Albion. 3 kits would be used up there, but you still have not yet touched New Amsterdam. So, when we talk of insufficiency, you understand that the police now would have to rotate the location of these kits in order to have work done in these areas. So, it's like sending it to Springlands, 1 kit to Springlands, and wherever else, there you have to do it out. Okay? And that is wholly unacceptable if you need to enforce the drunk driving laws. And I see a need for drunk driving to be given top priority, since it is associated with a number of deaths on the roads by drivers.
All right. Finally, before we come to the Rohi issue, I would not say all of the drunk drivers, because that is not a fact. The research has not shown that. But oftentimes when you hear people driving under the influence and cause accidents, especially road fatalities, oftentimes it's the age. The age is an issue. For example, in the case of the young man who killed the 3 girls recently. He's 19 years old and he was under the influence of alcohol. We see these days parents just giving their young children, their teenagers, a little more leverage. Okay, he wants the car or she wants the car, let them go with it, and they go, they have fun, they drink, and then they get behind the wheel of a vehicle. Do you believe that if we should raise the age requirement for the driver's licensing, it would have any effect at all on the amount of road accidents that we see annually?
I am not sure. A person becomes an adult at the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much higher you're going to take it. You go through a period of training, and if you stick to the training you have been given, then regardless of your age, you would exercise that amount of discipline and self-control to enable you to be in charge of the vehicle at all material times. But if you want to drink and drive, obviously liquor slows up brain activity, and so you take a much longer time to react to a perceived problem ahead of you. And like in this one, he not only struck the 3 children, but he drove away and struck 2 others, one of whom is still in a critical condition. Now, had he stopped, though the 3 were bad, those 2 would have been avoided. So obviously, persons like those, when in these accidents, you have to determine what was really going through their minds at the time. Now, early this year, a few months ago, this government passed the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2014. In that bill, carried the demerit point system, which was welcome. I personally welcomed it. But the worst thing that happened in that bill was that they stopped at disqualification, that a person who racked up a certain amount of points would be disqualified. I find that to be unsatisfactory. Because if after you have served your period of disqualification, then you're put back on the road just like that, chances are that you go back with the same bad attitude. So the government was told during the debates that they needed to go a stage further, which meant that they ought to have considered remedial testing, remedial driving tests, which should be stringent, because you're not going back on that road to do the same things you were doing before, and at the expense of the very drivers who have been disqualified. Now, they can't say that they did not have a recommendation. The recommendation came because we all supported the bill. But if we want to ensure that our citizens are safe on the road, and a man has racked up sufficient points for various offenses, then why put him back on the road without ensuring that he goes through a set of instructions which would bring him to a stage where he recognizes the seriousness of the offense he has committed and the need for him to be extremely careful when in charge of a motor vehicle.
Let me ask you this, especially in the light of the recent accident, the Wednesday night accident. What is the because I know it has to be investigated and charges and all of that, but what, at the end of it all, what is the most serious penalty or punishment that can befall the driver who killed those 3 girls?
Well, I know for sure, one, his license ought to be endorsed for or suspension, I think, until the case is finally determined.
And if he doesn't have a license, that's a charge by itself.
That's right, that's correct. And I can't remember the maximum penalty, but on conviction for first of all, he has to be charged with causing death by dangerous driving, 3 counts. The 2 I think it's...
Yeah, 3 on 1 spot.
Right, right. And the maximum penalty is a term of imprisonment. I can't remember if it's 5 or 10 years or what. I can't remember that offhand.
Okay.
But it's a period of imprisonment for some time. I think it carries a jail sentence for causing death by dangerous driving. But at least your driver's license ought to be suspended.
Okay. All right. Let's come to the Clement Rohi matter. Now, a Partnership for National Unity, from its recent statement, you're clearly using this, not only this recent accident, but accidents over a period of time. As I said, the last time APNU dealt with this issue would have been about 7 months ago. That was when, unfortunately, the chief librarian was killed. You dealt with this accident, with this issue then. Now, nothing has happened in terms of Mr. Rohi doing stuff for the Guyana Police Force in terms of having them improve on the road situation. Now, why do you believe that Mr. Rohi will heed your call this time around? Because it's been a continued thing for more than a year for a Partnership for National Unity and the current Home Affairs Minister. Why do you think that he's going to listen to you now?
Malika, I have no faith that the minister would ever listen, or even His Excellency the President. The PPP has an attitude which says that they pay no attention to the opposition, they are the government. And so even the convention of in implementing a no confidence vote would not be listened to. But we moved the no confidence motion to register our sincere concerns that the minister, having been in office since 2006, August, to now, just a few months short of 8 years, has not implemented any policy which would affect crime, traffic, drugs in a positive way, and to save this nation the problems it is going through, or it has gone through in these specific areas. And therefore, we have taken the steps which is within our power to take, to tell this government that we are dissatisfied with the performance of Clement James Rohi, and that they should bring into the Ministry of Home Affairs any other minister who would show some regard and have an understanding of the security problems in this country, and would take such steps that would aid in saving lives. That is the basic problem. We feel very uncomfortable sitting down and see Rohi err and err and err, or fail to act properly in his ministry. On crime, you have a whole range of issues. Robberies on the street, robberies in the gold mining claims on the interior, robberies in the Atlantic Ocean, the fishermen. You have human trafficking, you have drugs, narcotic trafficking. You have a whole range of issues which has seen no change under Rohi. As a matter of fact, they get worse. So we need to bring this to the attention of government time and again. One day they should hear. Remove that man from there. He is spoiler. His most recent comments suggest that he does not understand his responsibility. He's not up to the task, and so he should be reassigned.
Apart from the minister not being, and using your words, being a spoiler and not being up to the task, is he a approachable? Because then my next question would be, has Winston, Felix, and David Granger and the Partnership for National Unity, anybody who's interested in security, public security, have you stretched across the table, reached out? Is he approachable?
Well, I have spoken with him, and I have spoken with him many times. I can't say that he's not approachable. But you can talk on one side, is how it is internalized on the other side.
Okay.
Because you may genuinely make a point on one issue, but the PPP looks at the other angle, or another angle, and comes to a decision which does not really deal with the, effectively with the issue.
Okay. All right. Viewers, the phone lines are now open. You can call and pose your questions. Of course, be as brief as you possibly can. Be respectful. You know, I ask you when you have information to give. If it's going to involve name calling, try not to call the names of persons. I always accommodate you after the program at our office. So we'll now take our first call. Caller, good day to you.
Hi, good afternoon, Felix. Yeah, how does the force determine ranks who are owl or who have been illegal withdrawn? Can you elaborate on this?
Illegal ranks, you said?
No, how does the force judge ranks who have been owl or who has been illegal withdrawn? What are the steps?
Okay, all right. Thank you, caller. We'll take another call and then we'll get a response from Mr. Felix. Caller, good day.
Hello, Malika.
Hello.
I'd like to ask a question that bothers me.
Uh-huh.
People get killed, such as in the accident that occurred the other day.
Uh-huh.
In a lot of instances, people with money throw some money at the parents or the family of the deceased, and nothing else is followed up.
Okay.
I have a concern. Why can't the laws of Guyana be implemented so that when people are killed by dangerous drivers, nobody feels that they could throw $1 million at a family and say that's it? It has happened on more than one occasion. I think there was a minister whose son killed 2 people, and they got away with just paying $1 million to the families, but that fellow was never charged.
Yeah. All right.
Could
Very
you
good question. Uh-huh.
Tell me something about that, please?
Thank you, caller. Mr. Felix?
Well, if I'm to take the last one first, it is completely wrong for the parents of victims or the relatives of victims to accept money for the deaths of their family, because it defeats the ends of justice. Justice is not served. So what these ill-advised persons do is to accept money as payment for the wrong. I can kill you and pay for you. That is what it amounts to. Now, how can you cost the life of your deceased victim? How do you know what his life would be like 20 years down the road or 10 years down the road? And then you accept $1 million? To me, that is unacceptable. We cannot pay, and we should not allow it in this system, to go to court and say, I do not want any further action. These are areas which need to be tightened up in our laws. We need to develop legislation that prevents relatives, victims, parents from accepting money where debts have occurred. Let the law take its natural course in these matters and bring the offenders to justice. Money cannot compensate you for a life loss, and $1 million, I can assure you in these days, will fly out like that. And the next thing you know, you're back to square one, and you still have a dead relative or family.
MP Felix, before you go on to the other question, if I can piggyback on the caller's question, same question you addressed. But currently, if that happens, can a police charge the person who is bribing and maybe the person who's accepting the bribe? Is it legal what they do?
Well, you see, when these statements are made, they are made within a shroud of secrecy. And so all the relatives do is go to court and say, I do not want any further action. The case is finished on their request. My proposal is that we should take out that aspect by legislation and prevent persons from just saying they don't want any further action and somebody is dead. They must go to court and testify and let that person be brought to justice.
Well said, sir. Thank you very much. And unfortunately, on that note, we have to leave you. Viewers, I want to thank you very much for tuning in, especially to the callers. Thank you for your contributions. And those who are still trying to call, unfortunately, we can't take any more. Of course, thanks for always supporting. And please remember, especially, and I'm appealing to young people, I'm not knocking you. I know it's very difficult to be a young person in our age, the age that we're living in, where you're macho and you want to prove that you're strong and you could do this and you could do that. But it is not smart to want to say that, okay, I could drink this amount or drink that amount and then still get behind the wheel of a vehicle. No, and I can drive home safe. Yes, you may do it once or you may do it twice, but eventually you're going to either kill someone, kill yourselves, or both of you. So please do not drink and drive. You should not consume a drop of alcohol if you know that you have to drive. I'm Malika Ramsey. Once again, thanks for joining us. Remember to be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.